Well, it's official. Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has announced a formal impeachment inquiry into President Biden, despite the potential political consequences and the fact that other Republicans who support the impeachment are also publicly undermining it by admitting to the press that they don't have evidence of Biden's misconduct. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, there's not much to say here. We've covered it in multiple videos. The situation is this. The vast majority of Americans do not support an impeachment into the president. The vast majority of Americans believe that any impeachment into the president would be about political witch hunt, political retribution, and not about a fact-finding mission. And yet Republicans have been investigating President Biden for 9 months, and they consistently come up short in terms of the evidence. Even their sympathizers in conservative media, like the Fox Propaganda Network, have repeatedly called them out for this. You make a big claim, you fail to support it. Despite this, Kevin McCarthy is now publicly supporting an impeachment inquiry into the president thanks to pressure from the far-right Freedom Caucus, which are basically Donald Trump's political surrogates in the House of Representatives. He's between a rock and a hard place. He's trying to manage a herd of cats. There are internal divisions within the GOP between the Freedom Caucus and more sane Republicans who don't support an impeachment because they don't believe that the evidence is there to justify it. Anyway, let's play Kevin McCarthy's remarks. I put it at 1.25 speed because he's very ponderous today in his remarks. He's speaking very slowly. So we're going to play this clip, and then we will play other clips, and we will unpack all of it together.
Despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer of the Committee on Oversight in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans.
What should concern all Americans is that Donald Trump has transformed the GOP into an authoritarian cult of personality, and that speakers like Kevin McCarthy and politicians like Kevin McCarthy don't have the backbone or the political will to stop him. And again, if you have any doubts about the veracity or the legitimacy of an impeachment inquiry, look no further than Nancy Mace. Now, Nancy Mace pitches herself as a moderate, rational Republican, but we pick on her a lot on this channel because, in fact, she's not. When push comes to shove, she's as radical as the rest of them. She's on the House Oversight Committee with James Comer. She has been a media surrogate for James Comer, trying to spread the message that Joe Biden is corrupt and that he should ultimately be impeached. Look at the clips that we're about to play. She's on CNN, and she's being pressed by CNN host Caitlin Collins to justify the investigations and potential impeachment into Joe Biden, and see how epically Nancy Mace fails to meet that burden.
Is astounding. You would be shocked. You would blush, Caitlin, if you'd seen what I had seen.
You've said this before, and we spoke with you after you went to the Treasury Department and looked at those reports. But I mean, you, as a member of Congress, do have access to those reports. You went and saw them yourself. So I think a lot of people ask, you've been home for 6 weeks. There's been no new evidence that's been uncovered or brought forward. So what is the basis now for having?
Well, I think, there are more people to subpoena, whether that's Hunter Biden, whether that's the bookkeeper, whether that's getting Shokin in to testify. There are a lot of witnesses out there that saw things that were part of meetings that Joe Biden was a part of, that were part of the transactions, that were potentially part of the bribery scheme. I mean, all that evidence the American people should be able to have and see. The American people can't.
None of it has risen
to
that.
Well, the American people can't see the suspicious activity reports. Those are confidential documents. So any piece of evidence, right or wrong, I want the American people to see all of it, whether it...
So again, see how cagey she is with her language. She says, listen, the impeachment inquiry is justified because there are more people to investigate. There are more people to subpoena, meaning it obviously the implication being that the evidence that they have currently, based on 9 months worth of investigation, is insufficient. They have to go further because they don't have the evidence at hand. Now, we're going to get to that because it implies she's putting the cart before the horse rather than the other way around. And as you'll see in this exchange with Caitlin Collins, she basically admits to doing just that.
The people deserve the truth and nothing but the truth.
Isn't it supposed to be the evidence that leads you to pursue impeachment and impeachment inquiry?
Well, that's what the inquiry is for.
But there's
to
already
get more evidence.
Investigations. I think that's where people are confused, because it's not like
but
there's no investigation
we don't have Joe Biden's bank records yet. And so one way to do that, my understanding, would be through an impeachment inquiry. So if that's what gets us those bank records, then I'm going to support it.
So again, you see how Caitlin Collins pushes her on that. Like, wait a minute, even an impeachment inquiry is not to be taken lightly. You're supposed to have sufficient predicate, sufficient basis by which to take it to that level. What's your basis for doing so? And Nancy Mace gives it away. She goes, actually, no, that's what the impeachment inquiry is for. We don't need evidence to get to an impeachment inquiry. The impeachment inquiry is what is pursuing the evidence. And then Caitlin Collins is basically like, well, what have the last 9 months worth of investigation been for? Because you all have been saying repeatedly in the media that Joe Biden is corrupt, Joe Biden is guilty, Joe Biden has accepted bribes, Joe Biden has compromised national security. And yet when the media, including conservative media like the Fox News Network, even when they put your feet to the fire, you come up short. So this is clearly a fishing expedition. They don't have a predicate for the impeachment inquiry. This is a last-ditch effort to find something that they can stick to Biden, despite the fact that the majority of Americans don't support an impeachment. Last clip we're going to play, where, again, if you have any doubts about the legitimacy of this impeachment inquiry or the investigations into President Biden, this will hopefully put them to bed.
To support it. I'm just saying, if you could see what I have seen, and I believe you deserve to see that.
But have you seen direct evidence
I
related to President Biden? Because that's what we have not heard.
Well, we have to connect the dots, and that has to be through the bank records. If his bank records show nothing, the American people should know that too.
And you think it's worth launching that 100%. To get to that?
I do. If that's what gets us the bank records, that's what we should do.
So right there, she gives the game away. This is the predicate by which Kevin McCarthy is announcing a formal impeachment inquiry into the president. This is where the fruits of 9 months of parallel investigations by the House Oversight Committee and House Judiciary Committee into Hunter Biden and then ultimately Joe Biden. This is where it has reached, okay? She's saying, listen, we have to connect the dots. She doesn't admit that they do have evidence against Joe Biden. She basically admits they don't have evidence connecting Biden to any sort of misconduct. That's why they need the bank records. Well, what bank records? You have no evidence that those bank records exist. And she even allows for the possibility. She's like, and if Joe Biden's bank records vindicate him, then the American people deserve to know that too, which means she's clearly not confident that those bank records, the specific ones she's looking for, which tie Joe Biden to any crimes, exist. This is a fishing expedition. And this is the basis by which Kevin McCarthy has launched a formal impeachment inquiry into the president. This is wildly irresponsible. It's going to be politically costly if the current trajectory continues. And we're going into an election season, again, where 18 House Republicans are sitting in Biden districts, with the majority of Americans not supporting an impeachment into the president, believing that it's a politically motivated witch hunt, and also believing that the Republican majority in the House of Representatives has skewed priorities, that they're more interested in niche culture war issues and attacking the president than producing material benefits for the American people. This is an enormously politically complex situation in which Kevin McCarthy finds himself, and we have no sympathy for him. You should have no sympathy for him. The GOP has mutated, it's devolved into an authoritarian cult of personality. They're not a serious governing party. They're not a loyal opposition party. And this clown show that we're currently seeing is because they have allowed themselves to become that.